Hi, everybody. Welcome to All Things Metaphysical podcast with Kellie and Gail. This is episode 34.
Yay.
Brought to you by our spirit teams. I think that's funny.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, we were trying to figure out what to talk about today, as we do every week when we're going to do the podcast, because it's more fun to just kind of wing it. So, 2 minutes before we went on air, we were talking about frequency and vibration. So, maybe that's a good place to start today.
I think that's kind of the basics of when you start talking about spirituality and you start talking about people waking up. I think that's really where it starts, is with your energy. And, like I said, I mean, people always argue with me, everything is not energy. Everything is energy. I promise you, it really is. And if you're trying, I have several different clients right now who are all at the same point. And it always tickles me. I always laugh and work with people for so long. And then all of a sudden, well, when can I become psychic? When can I develop that? When can I see things? And that generally comes along with the territory. But that should not be your reason for wanting to raise your energy, raise your vibration. That should not be your, I want to become a spiritual person and study spirituality and who I am and how I fit into, this thing that we call life, so that I can be psychic and talk to people on the other side. That's not the way to do it. And yet I find people every day who that's what they want to do. But one of the things, and there was a discussion on Facebook not too long ago about different kinds of music, and your vibration depends greatly on what you surround yourself with. If you're listening to a lot of what I always called angry music that makes you want to beat your head against a wall, that's not good for your vibration. And I understand some people use that to release pent up frustration. And if that's you, then great, go for that. But if you're not already frustrated or have some kind of pent up anger issue, what I have found in working with people for a very long time is that listening to certain kinds of music can make you angry and can influence how you relate to other people. So, step number one, really, on any spiritual journey is learn about your energy, learn what does resonate with you, not what you grew up with, not what all your friends listen to. Learn what resonates with you, and you'll be that much further down the road.
When I was counseling people, when people were depressed, they were always listening to this really like sad, depressing music. They're like, but I just really relate to it. It helps me get out my feelings. And I'm like, and it helps you stay stuck in your feelings.
Right.
So sometimes you have to do the opposite of how you're really feeling.
And there is a big debate going on. I don't know where that sound came from. Anyway, in certain circles and people that I talk to on occasion about letting things go. When do you let them go? If you let go too prematurely, if you're going through something traumatic, you're just delaying the inevitable because it's going to come back until you heal it. And so many adults these days are reliving traumas that they had 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago that they never dealt with. So there's a fine line between shift your thinking, choose a better feeling thought, and let's feel what you're feeling so that you can get to the root of it, so that you can heal it. Then you can let it go and choose a better feeling thought. And I think having worked in Western therapy situations, that's generally not what what a lot of people are teaching people to do. A lot of people are telling their clients, well, just let it go. Just move past it. Just let it go. Well, you can't do that, because if you do that in 5 years from now, you're going to be triggered again, and you're going to be right back
Well,
there.
I think, sometimes people think about it like a maze, where there's a beginning and an end. It's more
Mhm,
like a labyrinth, right? When
mhm.
you go through anything, there's ups and downs. There's never really a beginning and an end. You just change layers. So, yes, you might get through something right now, and then you might revisit it because it's a different level to the labyrinth, or as people like to say, a different
Right,
layer to the onion. And it doesn't mean you
right,
didn't work through it before. It's just more stuff is now coming up in order to clear or continue to work through. Because the
right,
object is to get kind of all of it out. You can't always do that in one go through it.
right, right. And I look at it like a spiral,
Mhm,
because when you're ready to go deeper, you will go deeper.
mhm,
There's really, you're either going with the flow, or you're going to be fighting upstream to
mhm.
avoid feeling it. Those are your only two options. There is no, oh, it's okay. No, you're either fighting away from it, or you're going with the flow.
Well,
And I
yeah,
always
there is a third option. So you're either fighting it, going with the flow, or numbing it out by using something to make it all go away.
yeah, you can do that.
So
Yeah,
there's 3.
yeah. It's kind of the same thing, though, as running away from it. I know so many people that have spent the bulk of their adulthood running away from something that they should have healed in, like, junior high school, a couple of them.
Well,
And
my
it's funny.
my favorite thing is like people who moved halfway around the world and then they have the same exact issues that they had before they left and they don't understand it. Because what happens in situations is you create the same environment till you learn the lesson. So, like,
Right,
if you ran away from things, you're now going to recreate that wherever you go to till you actually work through it.
right.
Hi,
I
everybody.
know.
One second. Hi, everybody watching us. If you have questions or want to make comments, we're happy to share them on live with us. We try not to mention people's names because we're not sure who's going to be watching this later, and we try and kind of protect everyone's identity.
Yeah.
You were going to say something. I interrupted you.
Oh, no, you're fine. I was just going to say that I know someone right now who ran away from, it's one of these people, and I've known this person forever. So it's like, hi, do you know me? We've talked about this. You didn't get it the first 17 times we discussed it. But anyway, this particular person um, jumps from the same situation. She is creating the same exact person,
Mhm.
and she's a longtime friend of a young person I know. I've watched her grow up, and it's really funny to watch this. And every once in a while, she calls me and says, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Stop creating the same thing. You have to figure out, why does this keep happening?
Mhm.
What is my role in how this continues to happen to me? What am I supposed to learn from it? And she says, well, that sounds like it's really hard. So never mind. Okay, I'll talk to you the next one. It's just, you have to eventually deal with it. And
Mhm.
even if you're being triggered and you're going back deeper into the same situation, you still have got to deal with it.
Absolutely. And sometimes that's just really hard, and we talked a little bit about it last week. I'm taking this class that's really difficult for me. And I had my first one-on-one session that you get with the teacher yesterday. And, it was interesting to watch my own defenses come up as she was trying to help me work through it. And I'm like, no, I don't want to work. Of course, I'm going to, but my first reaction is to say, the word I like to use is nope. And
Yeah,
so, about the fourth time I did it during the thing, she's like, you are aware that you're doing this. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm very well aware that I'm doing this. And sometimes it's still hard, just because we may have answers or we may know things or we may have awareness Because, like she said, you have an amazing awareness of what's going on with you. I'm like, that doesn't mean I always want to work through it in that moment.
Right.
Sometimes I need to sit with things for a little bit and to just really let them percolate or marinate, whatever word you want to choose, and before I'm ready to completely work through it. But once I decide to work through it, I'm done. It
Yeah.
I'll do everything I need to do to work through it. And she's like, no one can work through things that fast. I'm like, yeah, you can. It's your belief that you can't that gets you in trouble.
Right. Right.
Why does everything always, like, just because it took years to maybe get here doesn't mean it's going to take years to go away. We have the ability to change our thought patterns. We have the ability to change our beliefs. And we have the ability to allow ourselves to feel what we need to feel in order to move through it.
It is a choice. I mean, it is absolutely a choice. And I know personally, and I've done a lot of inner work, and there are still times that something comes up and I notice that I'm being triggered, and it's like I follow the flow chart, to figure out where it came from and why it's bothering me. And then I'm like, okay, after I'm finishing what I'm doing right now, I will deal with you. And I usually do, because if I don't, I end up not sleeping because that's when I'm working through it. Um, but that is all about energy too.
Mhm.
When we work through things, and anyone who has ever pushed through something they didn't really want to do, how good do you feel when it's over and done? you know, that raises your vibration. And, I have had so many people say, well, all you people do is talk about vibration, this and frequency, that, and what the hell are chakras anyway? And I just had this discussion at the farmer's market last weekend. And it's just, as much as more and more people are stepping forward and talking people through all of this, there are that many more people that are just waking up and they're feeling like they're completely lost. And when I say everything is energy, and someone says, well, that's not right because I'm solid, it's like, all right, I am leaving this conversation now. We will pick this up at a later.
Kellie, one of our viewers wants the flow chart that you described.
You have to figure it out for yourself. Anytime you're triggered, and I've actually taught people how to do this. When you are triggered, ask yourself questions. Continue asking yourself questions till you run out of questions, and you will get to the bottom of it. But sometimes you take the scenic route,
Mhm.
and that's what I tend to do. So sometimes my flow chart, I might start here, and then I have to go back in time this way first, and then I go forward. And you can set it up though, and that's exactly what mine looks like mentally. It's my flow chart. I can trace
The
it back.
other way that I've done it in the past is I've taken a piece of paper and folded it like a in on itself, so it's like doors. And on the one flap, you write the event, and on the top flap, you write the outcome. And then you open it up and you're like, okay, what were the steps that got me from the event to the outcome? Because there's lots of things that happen. We just don't always think about those things. We think we go from 0 to 60. We don't. There are so many steps that escalate us or do things with us that we're so unaware of. So it's really stopping and looking at what were the things. Okay, so this was the end event. Well, what happened right before I got there?
Right.
Well, what happened right before that? Same thing you're saying, or what? But some people are more visual, so just doing it on a sheet of paper.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes you find when you're doing a lot of inner work, you
Mhm.
get taken on, like the scenic route. You remember things, or things pop up that you're like, whoa, I forgot that even happened. And you realize how it all relates. I taught a class one time where we did a big circle, and then people were writing down everything that they felt, what didn't have to be true, anything they felt like traumatized them
Mhm.
throughout their lives. And to me, even if it wouldn't traumatize me, if it traumatized you, it was a traumatizing event. And then we can look and see how everything connected to get where they were then. A little, yeah,
So I'm reading the comment. Sorry.
yeah, I am too. Yeah.
Oftentimes, and we've talked a little bit about this before, if you can survive your childhood, you can survive anything. Because most of us have some trauma, even if we don't label it as trauma, that happened during
Yeah.
our childhood, or names that we were called, or things that were said to us, or things like that. And so, again, last week I was talking a little bit about one of my mentors who talked about the world view. That's where your worldview is shaped, right? When you're a
Mhm.
kid growing up and what you see. So if you're shaped with, well, bad things always keep happening to me, that's what you become used to. And then
Right.
that's what you end up creating for yourself unconsciously, of course. No one creates that for themselves consciously. So, what do you think
It
about that?
well, it's very true, and it's sometimes really amusing what we were traumatized by.
Mhm.
If you follow it back far enough, you'll realize a lot of the time it started with something very trivial. I have a sister who is of another race. We adopted each other,
Mhm.
and we were working on a meditation, and actually, oddly enough, we were working on a chant that
Mhm.
we were going to create to present to this group of kids that she's a teacher that she was working with. And all of a sudden, she stopped and she said, "That's what happened." I'm like, well, "That's what happened." What? I didn't realize we were talking about something that happened. And she says, look at what she was drawing, and I'm very colorful. I'm like, I have a maypole up at my house. I am 60 years old and I live alone. I have a maypole up in my house, and it is decorated with various colored ribbons. And she has always liked black, brown, gray, no bright colors. And she said she remembered her first day of school, and her mom had put multicolored ribbons in her hair, in her braids, and she got teased, and she never wore multicolors again. And that evolved into says she doesn't like color. And what a trivial thing to most people, that somebody didn't like the ribbons in your hair. Most people, when I was at school, didn't like my hair, period. I mean, but it's always something that we can tie
Mhm.
with something else, with something else, with something else.
I can give another story around that. When I was in grammar school, we were supposed to make pumpkin patches with crayons and then the black paint, and then the color shines through. And I didn't like the way that everyone else was doing it in the class. So I, of course, did mine differently. And there was huge pumpkins, and it ended up looking like a silkscreen picture as opposed to what it was supposed to look like. And my teacher just tore into me about how I didn't do it right and I did it
Wow.
wrong. And that's why I never wanted to do art again
Right.
after that. And so I had lots of teachers who did that because I didn't do it the way that everyone else did it. I was seeing it differently. And that was a message which would then led to when I went to the opening intuition course, why I had such a strong reaction when the teacher said, we're going to make gift mandalas. And then I threw the temper tantrum, which I've told that story before.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
and then I haven't stopped drawing since because it didn't matter what everyone else said. It mattered about not shutting that part of myself off anymore,
Right.
putting that
I,
part of myself fully out into the world.
that's you touched on something, because it really doesn't matter what anyone else thinks,
Mm.
and we put so much emphasis on doing something right or doing something the correct way. And art should be about self-expression. At its core, it is
Mhm.
about self-expression. So there really shouldn't be, in my opinion, a right way or a wrong way. Um, I like to mess with it. My kindergarten, I went to two different kindergartens and they both threw me out. So I technically never finished kindergarten. Maybe that's the issue, but I would mess with this teacher because she was one of those teachers. You're not doing it right. You have to do it like this. So I colored the entire page, carefully staying outside of the lines
Mhm.
of the picture. And I did it to see what her reaction would be because she had been telling everybody else they weren't coloring right. You've got a group of 6-year-olds, they're not coloring right. I mean, come on. But we do that to our children, and it's not that they meant to hurt you, you know. And I didn't care at that point. I was like, I'm going to show you, lady. But that picture stayed up on my grandmother's refrigerator for like years, you know. But we should have more awareness of where a kid is coming from, you
Well,
know.
it leads me to, and what they're saying right now is that what we learn to do as kids when we get messages like that is we learn to doubt ourselves and not trust ourselves. Because when you've ever watched little kids, they're like, I want to do this again. This is fun. Let's keep
Right,
doing this. Watch me do this. I
right.
want to keep doing this. But it's the adults who say, no, you've done it enough. That's enough. And so we don't mean to, but it's squelching the trust in your own innate ability. So then you have all these people who have gifts who've learned to shut them all off because they were told they were doing it wrong or not using them correctly. And it's like, how do you learn to trust your innate abilities again? How do you learn to trust your own inner GPS? Because it's going to be different than everybody else's.
And that's a huge thing that a lot of people unfortunately never figure out. It's hard sometimes, especially if you combine those little messages at school with little messages at home with little messages elsewhere, and they kind of combine.
Sorry, if you notice we're staring down, there's a long comment, so we both
Yeah.
just stopped to read it. Good for you for standing up
Yeah.
for yourself, because that goes along with this, is that we forget how to do that.
Yeah.
We let people, we get so used to and so accustomed to dimming our own light. I'm going to put it that way because that's the words they told me to use. And it's time that everybody in the world now needs to be the bright light that they are. We can't keep dimming it to make other people feel better.
Yeah.
And they said, Amen.
Well, it's true. And, my obviously, my personal pet peeve is people arguing with me over everything is energy.
Mhm.
Everything is energy, promise. And the more
And
inner
energy is
work,
frequency and vibration. So,
the more inner work you do, the higher your vibration gets.
mhm.
And you really want to start doing that if you're not already doing that. And, immersing yourself in hate speech that you see online or politics or, whatever is berating you where you're at does not do you any favors. It's really important that you surround yourself with calm and peace and love.
Yeah, and I think that as we talk about these things, one of the things that you'll notice is you start to have memories or you start to have flashbacks because a lot of people have blocked a lot of things out because for various different reasons. In the famous trauma book is, our body keeps the score. At some point, it's all going to come back out because we need all those pieces to the puzzle. I always think about soul retrievals when we talk about this, that parts of your soul get fragmented
It
and
does.
that you need to reintegrate all the missing pieces back into who you are. Very limited um, explanation of soul retrieval, but
Yeah.
a pretty good one.
I had an interesting memory crop up, and then immediately I had someone from the other side talking to me. When I was 8, which I was too smart for my own good, and they kept skipping grades with me because nobody knew what to do with me. Um, when I was 8, we were doing a project in school,
Mhm.
and it was a Austin Police Department thing to teach observation skills. And there was a picture, and it was a crime scene. Well, it was an accident, it was an auto accident. And they blurred out all the gory parts, and they said, "How many people do you see?" And I saw 11 people. And he said, "Where do you see 11 people?" And I was seeing dead people. And at the time, this is a photo. I'd never seen a dead person in a photo, but I clearly saw them. And that teacher took me aside and argued with me and sent me home because I was insistent that I saw 11 people. Well, I had blocked that out. And the other night, I meditated, I went to bed, I was dead asleep for a couple of hours, which is miraculous. And all of a sudden, I see them now. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I see them now. And I'm like, why are you waking me up? And it was that teacher who I found out had passed like a week or so ago. And she remembered what she had said to me and what she'd done to me. And she said, I'm so sorry. Well, it's a little late now. That was like, 50 something years ago. We're good. We're good. I promise. But I had completely forgotten about that incident until,
Mhm.
and it's like she came forward to remind me that there's one more thing I needed to heal. So sometimes it happens that way.
And again, sometimes we're getting one of our viewers is talking about breaking the cycle of past
Yeah.
lives, pushing the issues into our present life. And yes, they'll keep. The way I like to say it is, how many times do you want to get smacked by the 2x4 till you finally do something different?
Yeah.
Because that's your choice. You can keep getting smacked by it and keep going, why does this keep happening? Or you can go, like what we were talking about a few minutes ago, why does this keep happening? What's my role in this? Can I make different choices? Is there something I can change?
It's it's important, and they're telling me to make this really clear, that everything that happened to you, even if at that time there was nothing you could have done differently, you still have a part in. It is never 100% anyone's fault. There is always something.
Hmm.
Yeah, I saw that too. Even if even if it goes back into a past life, there is some karmic relationship where we have a piece of everything that happens to us.
So for
So,
those, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
no, go ahead.
For those of you who are super sensitive to energy, there's this huge presence on my left side that just came in as we were talking about it, and that's why I looked behind me to see who it was. So if any of you who are watching this at a later date and you're just like, what the? I just thought I'd make it speakable because there's a being standing right next to me. Any idea who it is?
Not off the top of my head.
I hope it's not the teacher.
No. Now, it was the strangest thing though, because I had, if you had asked me for a list of my top 5 teachers, she would have been on that list because
Mhm.
I liked her. And maybe because I did like her, I blocked that whole little episode, which when I start thinking about things, like I like really go down the rabbit hole and
Hmm.
I try to connect dots that aren't really there, and all kind of things. But yeah, interesting.
Huh. I didn't mean to derail us. I just there's
No, it's yeah, very interesting.
so I guess that's for me to figure out when we're done here who this being is and what I get to help them with. Because they're like tapping me on the shoulder saying, it's time, you need to do this. I'm like, I'm in the middle of a podcast right now.
You're right. Yes, you must wait. Yeah. Yeah, that's synchronicities like that though come up all the time. And when someone comes to you and they don't care what you're doing. They're like, "No, I'm here now. You must do this. And to me, that's just another synchronicity in the long line of things because this being has something to tell you. And they do not care if you're busy, they have something to tell you. And sometimes they will use other people to tell you what you need to hear. Like the lady at the vet, sometimes random people will come up to me and they will just say something that I'm like, really cool.
Yeah, because you don't expect it to come from people you don't know, but messengers come in all different ways, and
They do.
oftentimes they will get you the message. Okay, no, they're just like freezing the whole left side of my body. I'm like, I know you're here. I got it.
Yeah.
Sorry, this usually doesn't happen during podcasts. Usually they're very respectful and they wait till before or after, but there's something pretty urgent going on.
Yeah. This is not someone you know.
So, so if any of our viewers would like to weigh in on who the being on my left side is, feel free to let us know in the comment section. I have a feeling there's something I'm going to have to do after this more so than a message that they want to give me. So,
Yeah.
so maybe we could talk about that. Is that as your frequency and your vibration change, the way and how information comes through oftentimes changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, and I've had students tell me, well, that's a downer. But a lot of the time, the higher your vibration is, when you slip back or try to, or repeat a bad habit or a line of thought you used to have and nothing ever happened, the repercussions get more and more and more severe at that point. And it's like, we're not playing with you anymore. This is it. But they do give you signs
Mm-hmm.
all the time. One of the hardest things for people who are just starting to really do some inner work and try raising their vibrations and becoming more open and more spiritual is you have to shut up and listen. As somebody just said that. You have to learn to differentiate between the noise
Mm-hmm.
and your messages. And that is really, really hard for most people. It was really hard for me. And, they were insistent. And still to this day, I mentioned the thing at the vet. I do animal rescue. I took puppies to the vet. I have 20 acres. I have often talked with my friends about doing a spiritual retreat here.
Mm-hmm.
So I walk into the vet. I don't know this woman behind the desk. And we're talking about puppies. And we're talking about puppies and we're talking about puppies. And all of a sudden she says, when are you opening the retreat center? uh, Apparently soon. That kind of stuff will start happening to you. And people always get freaked out, and there's nothing to be freaked out. It's the universe talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
And she went right back to talking about puppies. It's like somebody stepped in, said what they needed to say, and left.
It's always interesting, and I think I can speak for both of us, hopefully, is that, we like to do this podcast because I think it's conversations that people need to hear and people need to have and people need to talk about. With that said, at the same time, it's never my intention to force anyone to believe anything.
Right.
I don't need people to believe what I believe. I'm pretty okay with where my belief system is, and hopefully I can help guide people to figure out what their own belief system is. Because I don't know about you, but I've had teachers who have been like, no, you have to do it this way, or you have to do it this way. And I think everyone needs to figure out how they need to do it for themselves. and what's going to work best for them, more so than I need to do it the same way that somebody else does. Maybe that's not how my brain works. Maybe
Right.
that's not how I get information.
You know, and
Apparently, I'm talking with my hands a lot today.
we are all on a different path.
Hmm.
And I think that's what really gets me about certain teachers that I see online talking about, we give you 10 steps to whatever it is. There aren't 10 steps. There may be 10 billion steps. You don't know. Everyone is different. You can't do a program that's one size fits all. You just can't. Believe me, I've tried. You can't. And when I hear things like that, it really reinforces the reason that I wanted to do the show is because we do talk about things people need to hear about. You will see that when you watch this back. Um, it's information people need, and when you present it in a conversational manner, it sticks better, I think.
Yeah, during Ascension, and it's happening a lot lately with the energy, just to answer the question about that our viewer asking, is there's days where you don't get messages right now
Yeah,
because oftentimes your physical body and your physical structure needs to catch up to the energy level that you're at. And so sometimes you won't get messages for a couple days because it would blow the circuitry, they're saying, to say it that way, is
right,
sometimes the circuitry has to match up with our physical being and our physical structure, and sometimes that can take a couple days. So there are quiet days now. Like I have a friend who's a transport medium, and she's been pretty busy with everything that's been happening in the Ukraine, but there's some days where they're like, you need the day off, you know.
right.
So we're still in a human body. Sometimes they understand that, sometimes they don't. But for the most part, sometimes we need downtime. We can't keep going at that really high pace because we'll eventually crash because
Yeah,
energetically our bodies need to catch up.
yeah, and that's something that's hard for people to understand as well. We live in a society that's all go, 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 and we are not designed to do that.
Mhm.
It's kind of um, most days I'm really not in my body much. I'm just like supervising. Someone would give me a remote control so I could work my body. I would be good with that. But it's the energy's been so chaotic this year so far.
I feel like we've said that ever since like March of 2020. It's like
Well,
there hasn't really been a downtime since then. There's always been something going on, something going on. It's like no one can catch a breather.
right.
So one of our viewers said, I think my circuits broke today. Well, they never really actually break. Sometimes they just need to stop for a little bit in order to rewire themselves.
Yep. You need to unplug and reboot.
It's funny, and I've talked about this before, but my spirit team generally is oftentimes very funny with me. And when I'm not grounded, they start singing the Glade plug it in commercial to me. I'm like, okay, I got to ground into the earth. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had um, a lot of gardening stuff that I do every spring, but this year has been just kind of insane with all the animal rescue stuff going on at the same time. And if it were not for playing in the dirt and grounding that way, I would don't know what I would be doing because I would be so everywhere that I wouldn't be getting anything done.
Now they're singing the Johnny Cash song, I'd be everywhere, man.
Yeah, yeah. And I had a journey, a shamanic journey one time where every being I met on that journey was singing that song. I've been everywhere. Like not even remotely relating to what I was journeying for, but all right, amuse yourselves. And they do. It's important to pay attention to when you're tired these days and take some time off If you feel a constant buzzing in your head, not your ears ringing, not a buzzing in your head, it's time to close up shop and, let's take a break. Sometimes, sometimes the spirit world is quite chatty. I did a reading before this show, and I'm still having her people talking to me, so it's like, go away, go away. Um, but even people who don't do readings,
Mm-hmm.
they don't know that they're doing readings, are doing readings. And you can be walking, going about your normal day, and all of a sudden somebody's talking to you. And if that is happening to you, you need to try to get to a calm space, a safe space where you can sit and be quiet and figure out who's talking to you and what they want to say. Because in my experience, they will keep talking and if you listen to them. And if you're driving or you're trying to do work or you're doing something important, you don't want that distraction. I am one of those people who has been known to drive off the road because I'm trying to concentrate on driving and listening to someone. So don't do that. Give yourself some space. When you are more comfortable with them talking to you, you can tell them, you know what, now's not a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Usually they will leave. Sometimes they will not.
All right. With that, anything you want to say to kind of wrap up today's show?
Um, Pay attention to your surroundings.
Mm-hmm. And
You
pay
know,
attention to signs and messages and see that things that you see or hear in multiples, because those are
yeah,
really, really important.
yeah.
All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your evening, and we will be back next week.
Yep.
Let us know if you have any comments or questions before next week that you want us to talk about, or if you just like how we start on a subject and ramble through
Meander through
talking about taking the scenic route. Yeah, so we will see you guys all again next week. Bye for now.
Bye.